Okay, we're going to look at the gradient of a line. The gradient, and we use the symbol small m for gradient, is a measure of how steep something is. Last year we looked at the formula rise over run. This year we're going to look at a formula. The gradient is y2 minus y1 divided by x2 over x1. Gradient is constant anywhere along the line, so the gradient, if I found the gradient of the line at this point, it would be the same as the gradient of this line at this point. It's constant along the entire line. Okay, so let's look at this formula that we're introducing this year, m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. What I do, if I've got 2 points and I'm asked to find the gradient between them, I don't have to take the time to plot them onto a Cartesian plane and then work out the rise from that and the run from that. I can use this formula. With this formula, I'm going to call this point, point 1, and this point, point 2. It actually doesn't matter if you call it the other way around. This is the x-coordinate of point 1. The 5 is the y-coordinate of point 1. With point 2, 1 is the x-coordinate and 14 is the y-coordinate. So in other words, what we have, we've got negative 2 as x1. We've got 5 as y1. We've got x2 being 1. And we've got y2 being 14. So I now write my formula down, and I must do that. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I substitute in my point, so I look at my pink point, y2 is 14. I subtract y1, which is 5. On the bottom I've got x2, which is 1, and I subtract negative 2, because x1 is negative 2, but I've got to subtract it, because my rule tells me that. So now what I have, on the top I've got 14 subtract 5, which is 9. On the bottom I've got 1 subtract negative 2, which is 3, because it's like 1 plus 2, which is 3. So the gradient of this line is 3. So what we do is we just make sure we label our points x1, y1, x2, y2, and then substitute them into the formula. Let's look here. We've got 2 points, but they're shown on the graph. So here's point 1 and here's point 2, for example. So there's my x1, y1, x2, y2. So I can color code this one again if you like. So my x1 is my 10. My y1 is my 13. My x2 is my 0. And my y2 is my negative 2. I write down my formula. Gradient is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So gradient is equal to y2, which is negative 2 subtract 13, because y1's 13. My x2 is 0, so it's 0 subtract my x1, which is negative 10. So now on the top, negative 2 subtract 13 is negative 15, 0 subtract 10 is negative 10. 5 goes into both of those. 5 goes into that 3 times, 5 goes into that twice, and my negatives cancel. So the gradient of this line is 3 over 2. Next one. Same formula. Always write the formula down first. Label the points. So x1, y1, x2, y2. Then we substitute in. So y2, negative 24, subtract y1, which is 6. x2 is 10, subtract x1, which is 0. So on the top here we have negative 30. On the bottom we have 10. 10 goes into itself once, 10 goes into 30 3 times, and a negative divided by a positive is a negative. So the answer is negative 3. Okay. I'm not sure if you remember from last year, we actually talked about how a horizontal line has a gradient of 0 and a vertical line, the gradient is undefined. That's something that hopefully you just recognise, but we could do this and show you this by the way of the formula. Okay, I'm going to pick any 2 points along this line. So I'll pick this point here and the point here. So the second point I've chosen is 10, negative 6. The first point I've chosen is 5, negative 6. So I'll call that my x1, y1, my x2, my y2. So if we substitute it in, my y2 is negative 6, subtract negative 6. And on the bottom, I've got x2, which is 10, subtract 5. Negative 6, subtract negative 6. On the top, that gives us 0. On the bottom, gives us 5. 0 divided by 5 is 0, so the gradient, as we expected, was 0. Let's pick 2 points here. I'll choose this point here, which is the point 7, 0, and I'll choose the point here, which is 7, negative 10. x1, y1, x2, y2. Write down my formula. Substitute in. So y2, so negative 10 subtract 0. x2, 7 subtract 7. So this gives me negative 10 over 0. You put negative 10 divided by 0 into your calculator and it will say maths error. So anything divided by 0 is undefined. It's maths error, undefined. And we're expecting that because we learnt last year that a vertical line's gradient is undefined. So gradient is a measure of steepness. Anywhere along the line, the gradient is the same if it's a straight line. And so we don't have to actually sketch it and work out the rise and the run from the sketch. Basically, this formula is a different way of saying rise over run. So that's our first video for gradient.